Oh, I better think of my meaning in the mundane.
Oh my God, Erin. Seriously.
I
so
know.
unprofessional.
There goes that whole vote of confidence with my responsibility.
Yeah, I was really looking at you differently for a minute, but never mind.
Only a minute. Everyone, and welcome to Middleish, the podcast about moderation in all things. I'm Erin Green.
And I am Michael Gray. And we're glad you're here.
Thanks for joining us on this lovely fall day.
Yeah.
There's a holiday coming up.
There is.
Yeah.
Yes.
It's the start of chocolate season.
Yes, the 4th of July.
Michael's in a time warp.
That's hot dog season.
Right.
That's my favorite season, hot dog season.
And tater salad.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so I learned a long time ago, I heard the phrase chocolate season.
I have not heard that.
Okay, so chocolate season supposedly starts with Halloween and ends with Valentine's Day.
Okay. I was going to say ends with Easter.
Whoa. Oh, maybe you're right.
It's half the year.
Jeez. Yeah, I was going to say, geez, that makes it 6 months. I thought it ended with Valentine's Day.
Well, there's a big gap between Valentine's Day and Easter, right? So we could say Valentine's Day. And then there's
St. Patty's
anomaly.
I mean, St. Patty's Day, is a stout considered chocolatey, maybe?
Yeah, but yeah. I think it's safe to say it ends at Valentine's Day, and then there's just a little blip there with Easter.
Yeah.
Chocolate season. Here we go.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And another thing is, I'm not sure how the trick-or-treating is going to go this year with the whole pandemic situation, because I've been reading when Matt and I went on our road trip last week. In fact, we were both kind of curious because we don't have kids. We were like, what's the recommendation on this trick-or-treating thing? Like, do we need to prepare for trick-or-treaters?
Yeah.
And they have this whole list of, low risk activities, moderate risk, and then high risk activities. And of course, like big Halloween parties inside are not great ideas. Those kinds of things. But then, doing outdoor kinds of activities where you can be spaced apart, or doing like a Halloween parade, I thought was kind of a fun, idea, or doing like pumpkin carving where you're sitting like apart from people outside or in like someone's open garage would be.
Why are you forcing this pumpkin carving on me, Erin? Like, you're just really pushing it. This is 2 weeks in a row, and I've had enough.
You clearly have a little hang up on that, because I wasn't even thinking about our conversation.
You pumpkin pusher.
Clearly you didn't buy the pumpkin carving set that I advised you to get.
I did not. Not even a little bit. Nope.
Yeah. I'm going to buy one and send it to you. Then you can call me the pumpkin pusher. I'll be pressuring that pumpkin party.
That's a lot of peas.
Yeah.
It's a lot of alliteration there. Pushing pumpkins for that pumpkin party. Yeah. Anyway. No, I didn't buy any.
Well,
I probably should.
That's
Sophie
an idea.
said this morning that she wanted to, so.
Oh, see.
Yeah.
And you can't say no to those big brown puppy dog eyes.
Oh my gosh. It's hard. They both know how to work me. It's so stupid. Like, I know what they're doing, and they know I know. It still works. It's like everybody's in on, like, we all know what you're doing right now, and it's still very effective.
Yeah. Well, and the upside of that, since we're going to be delving into Halloween candy and how to manage that with kids, and how to manage the candy supply in your house as an adult who's maybe tempted by candy a lot, Halloween can be made to not emphasize the candy part. So you can really celebrate some of the non-candy fun of Halloween, whether it's decorating your house, whether it's finding the costume. You can have, different contests or parties or scavenger hunts or anything that are Halloween themed. You can read books and watch Halloween movies.
Yeah, you can summon the dead and do sacrifices.
Oh, geez. I don't want to be invited to your Halloween party. And you're against pumpkin carving and you have some altar in your backyard. I don't know about this.
Altar, just some rocks,
Fine.
Let's not call it an altar. It's not too official. But no, you're right. You're right. Yeah. Sorry.
So there's lots of things that you can do that are not candy specific or candy oriented.
Right.
So I would suggest when we dive into some of the steps to helping moderate this Halloween candy business that we all get sucked into, step number 1 would just be de-emphasizing that piece, or like finding other ways to celebrate Halloween and to get festive and for kids to be excited, instead of just the candy.
Right. Well, and I think it's easy as a parent to kind of emphasize that, because that's like often that's the big thing you do, you know what I mean, on Halloween, is you go and you get candy, versus like you're talking about, like, let's emphasize like how exciting it is to dress up, and pick out the costume, and let's have some games. Let's do some games and activities and, that kind of stuff. So it's not just like, all right, what time are we getting the candy? We're just waiting to get dressed and go get the candy, to put, like you're saying, a lot of emphasis on emphasis on other things that are equally as fun. I know, just having 2 kids, like, yeah, the candy's awesome, but they really like doing a lot of other stuff too. They get just as excited about doing a little craft, or, Kathleen's really good about getting things like at Target or Walmart, just like little cheapy little foam crafts, or like $1, where they can color them or glue stuff together. Or she always gets those little kind of gummy sticky things for windows.
Oh, yeah.
Gets touch with the kids. They love doing that. And there's a lot of that stuff that's really fun and exciting for them. That's not candy.
Just candy. And I love doing the spider webs, like the cotton spider webs that you kind of string out and you put outside or inside or whatever.
Yeah.
And go to a pumpkin patch and go pick a pumpkin. And you don't have to carve it, Michael. You can just set it on your doorstep and let the squirrels like dive bomb it like they do ours. Yeah. The squirrels literally stormed the castle. I went outside. Yeah, I went outside one time. We had pumpkins we were going to carve, and I had set them out on my front steps. And I went out a couple days later, and there was a hole, literally just this massive, like a bomb exploded out of the pumpkin, and there were seeds and guts everywhere. Nice. And there's this, you could see all the scratch marks around the hole where the squirrel got into the pumpkin. Those things are, we have like militant squirrels around this area.
It was squirrel militia.
Oh yeah. They see the pumpkin and it's like, rally the troops. Here we go.
I don't know if they have pumpkin patches down here. I haven't seen one. Okay.
You haven't looked for one either.
That's true. That's a fair point.
Yeah.
And I may be showing my ignorance, but up there in the Northwest, you see them all over. You know what I mean? I haven't seen any down here. I don't know. That's not a thing, but I don't think like corn mazes are a thing down here.
Oh, that would be fun too.
I don't think.
Yeah.
But
well,
yeah.
So for those listeners that may have access to those things,
right.
The corn mazes, the pumpkin patches, the apple orchards, the point is there are a lot of Halloween-y type activities that you can get into that are fun and don't always revolve around candy. And along those same lines, part of the reason why some kids or most kids get super overly excited about candy is because it's placed in this very restrictive kind of area in eating. And so candy is a treat. Candy is maybe limited. Their kids pick up on very subtle messages. So even if you don't outwardly say, we can't eat a lot of candy or we shouldn't eat a lot of candy, kids will pick up on those messages anyway. Mm-hmm. And it starts from a very young age. Think about it. When kids are basically told, well, if you eat your whole dinner, then you'll get dessert or something like that. Or, well, we can get a treat if you're good at, the doctor's office, something like that. So we have this like built-in kind of messaging for our children that shows them that candy is to be coveted and celebrated, and you take advantage of that any chance you get. Part of what we're going to be talking about today is trying to sort of normalize and neutralize that viewpoint on candy and sweets.
Yeah. No, I think it's like anything, like what are the things you do not very often tend to be the bigger, grander things, right? Like I'm thinking like you don't go on a vacation every week. And so when you're going to go, it's like, that's this really big deal. You know what I mean? Like growing up, we hardly ever went out to eat. We just never did. 4 kids, my mom stayed home. My dad was a teacher. Like we didn't go out to eat very often.
Right.
So when we did, it was like this really big deal, and I think we can often mistakenly, unknowingly do that with things like Halloween candy, because it's like, okay, we're going to restrict it. And it's this big event thing. And so our kids' interest in it is just super heightened because we build it up to this very special, very wonderful, very rare thing, that we could have all this candy. And I think if we can kind of demystify it a little bit and just be like, it's not a big deal, whatever. It's food like anything else, then as a kid, there's sort of this other message that we get to communicate of like, it's just a thing, it's just a thing, just like any other thing.
Yeah. And it's fun, but just like vacation, it can feel really good to come home and to stop living out of a suitcase, or, you know what I mean? So I have experienced that with times where I'm just like, oh my gosh, I don't want to go home. I love the vacation. I love this and blah, blah, blah. But then if you think about the nice things about going home or the nice things about being home, your own bed, when we were camping last week, was taking a shower, there are certain things so there's always something positive to look at on that other side. And with candy, first, one of the primary, I guess, suggestions with Halloween night and the days after Halloween, when you have this candy supply, is to allow your child to eat as much as they want. It's their candy. It's not something that you're the sheriff and you get to like regulate that stuff.
Right.
Let the kids, it's their candy. They went trick-or-treating for it, or they, went to a little school carnival or something, and that's their, prize. And don't worry about, this is a very short period of time, these holiday celebrations. Don't worry about those long-term implications on their health, their behavior, which we'll talk about that in a second, sugar and behavior, or what this is going to do to their nutrition in the short term, because it really is a short-term kind of thing.
It's very short-term. Yeah. And I think it goes into, it may even illuminate for some of you how you are imposing your thinking of nutrition and being healthy and what those approaches look like onto your kids, right?
Yeah.
Because it's very likely that you, at least at some point, if not currently, have this thought of, I can't do it at all because then I've ruined everything. Right? Like if you go out for breakfast and you order a big stack of pancakes and chocolate milk, or, you have pizza and beer with friends, it's like, well, I've ruined everything because I've put so much emphasis and importance on this one moment, that it undoes everything. And then we can apply that thinking to our kids, I think. And we go, my gosh, if they eat a lot of candy for a couple of days, everything's ruined. When in reality, what happens? Nothing happens.
Yes.
It's like as anticlimactic as it gets. It's not, they run out of candy sooner. I guess that happens.
Right.
It's not a big deal. And I think, and I don't want to steal your point. So,
go for it.
I'm just going
to, it's not mine.
I
haven't said it yet.
I don't know if you were going to make this point, but I didn't know where you were headed. So I think one thing I've noticed with my kids is when we allow just a lot more of that, like, yeah, okay, if you want it, go for it, is they really wind up teaching themselves lessons, because if they go too far, my oldest daughter, Lila, who's 9 now, at least a few different times in the past when she's just had more freedom with that kind of stuff, at some point has come to me and gone, Daddy, I don't want to eat any more candy today. I don't feel very good.
Yeah.
Like my tummy hurts. Like, I just want to eat healthier stuff. Like, can I have just some fruit and stuff? Like they just sort of learn this lesson of like, oh, when you go too far with stuff, it kind of sucks. So have some freedom, but I'm not going to go get too crazy with it because I don't like how I feel when I do. That's a good lesson to learn. That's a
Yeah.
good thing for a kid to know,
And I totally, you did kind of steal my point because that's
Sorry.
the direction I was going. But let's just like celebrate this moment that we're getting to the point where you can finish my thoughts for me. So good job.
That's
High
awesome.
five, partner.
All right.
Instead
That's
of
all
being
I've
mad
ever
at you,
wanted.
I'll celebrate. But
I did
no,
something right. She's happy with me. God, finally.
You do a lot of things right, my friend.
Oh, thanks.
And I'll just choose to look at this one as being right.
Like what? I'm just kidding.
So moving on. But back to the whole vacation analogy, that was kind of where I was going with it, where yes, there's a lot of things that are really wonderful about the vacation or being gone from home or taking time off work. But then there's always some kind of positive spin you can put on that return to normalcy or what it feels like to, be back in your routine, be back home, whatever. Similarly with the candy, and what kids will discover is enough is enough. Like there will be times when I get a bellyache because I ate too much candy, or, I don't have the energy. I want real food. There are foods that children, and you can even ask your child if they literally make meals and snacks out of all of their candy for the next 3 days after Halloween, because hopefully you're allowing them access to their candy stash and it's theirs to keep. They might come to you and be like, man, I don't feel very good. Or, you might even ask them, what kinds of foods do you miss? You've had a lot of candy. Are there other foods that you still like? And, that I could make for you or that you'd like to have for a snack or for dinner. Kids are, they learn, I think, more quickly than adults when it comes to this stuff. And they're very good self-regulators.
They're really good at it. They're really good at it.
And along that line, kids will usually stop when they're full. Like they literally will, I've had enough. I don't need to finish this candy bar or whatever I have in front of me. So I'm asking you guys to be brave. You parents out there with your kids, be brave and let them go through their stash on Halloween night. Let them eat their fill. Let them eat it as they're going, walking through the neighborhood, that kind of stuff. And let them keep their stash for a few days after Halloween, and they can have access to it and eat what they want out of it. Now, after a certain period of time, there's no hard line here, but it could be 3 or 4 days. It could be a week. Whatever works for your family, you might start putting a little bit more regulation on, or boundaries on, the candy eating to allow for those other foods to come back in to play. And it doesn't become an issue of you shouldn't eat that. It becomes more of an issue of we need to make room for some other foods that you enjoy eating, that we all enjoy eating, and that are good for you and that help you have the right kind of energy. They might help your tummy feel better. That kind of message. So when we move into that phase, then it's, offering the candy alongside a balanced meal, and it's the dessert, or offering it for a snack. I've even seen suggestions where you literally put like a pile of the candy on the table, like a buffet, and that's snack time. And you could choose to have some other options there, like some fruit or, some, I have a funny story to tell about string cheese, but having something like a string cheese or some nuts or something like that alongside the candy. And then allow your child to eat until they're satisfied. And that, again, that de-emphasizes that restrictive kind of mindset around candy.
Right. And I think, 2 points to what you're saying. One, we've noticed that, our kids kind of like wean themselves off of it, because every year with Easter, Halloween, whatever, there comes a point where it's like, a month or maybe 2 later, we're like, that candy's just sitting in the pantry and hasn't been touched.
Exactly.
Forever. Yeah. It's just like they kind of reach a place where like, okay, I'm done. like the novelty of it's worn off. I don't really want any more of it, and they just kind of work themselves out of it, which is a really good skill for a kid to have. Also, I think you really run a really high risk, a dangerous risk of, if you restrict that candy, I think there's a good chance your kid is going to try to sneak that candy. And when you got a kid who starts sneaking treats and foods, it can be a benign thing. It could also be really setting them up for shame around food, hiding what they eat, all these things that can really lead to a lot of hard stuff to deal with as an adult. Very unintentionally. I think there's good intentions behind that of like, okay, only 2 pieces a day, because then, but let's be honest, kids, man, they don't want 2 pieces a day of their Halloween candy. That sucks. And it's going to take them 9 months to get through it, and the candy's all going to taste like crap in 4 weeks because it's stale. Like, of course they're going to try to get more. And the only way to get more is they're going to sneak it, and I think that kind of restriction, at least really hard restrictions on it can really set themselves up for some stuff that's ugly to deal with later on in life.
Right. And I think you and I can both agree that we've run into those conversations with many of our adult clients in terms of this hierarchy of food and this power that certain foods have over the person, because they're deemed as a restrictive kind of mindset looking at that food, or a food that you shouldn't have, or there's judgment placed on it. Where what we're advocating for is trying to withhold some of that judgment so that kids aren't, swept up in the, getting away with something, or I'm doing something I shouldn't be doing. And that's part of, so talking about sugar and behavior, there's very limited evidence, and I would say it's not even strong evidence, that sugar intake is related to hyperactivity. Now, I'm saying this as a notion in the general population. I know that I've worked with a lot of parents that have kids with, ADHD or on the autism spectrum or whatever. And I know that there's some nuance there. So I'm not saying this is with all finality. At the same time, I think the emphasis that we put on candy and how it's usually used as a celebration kind of thing, a party thing, an exciting thing, it's that like mood and ambiance that we put on consuming candy that kids feed off of. And then it turns into a party, and then their behavior, changes based on that. So I say this to help you maybe work through some of that fear that your child is just going to be hyperactive because they eat candy. They're likely not, especially if you don't put that kind of restrictive sort of, okay, you can only have this much, and it's a party every time you get candy kind of thing.
Yeah. Well, and two, I think it's just, it kind of speaks to just a lack of understanding how kind of like food gets metabolized and used and that kind of stuff. And it's almost like, so like we eat something, right? That food gets broken down and turned into, potential energy. And if we don't use it, we store it, right? And it's like sugar, we think, is metabolized completely differently. It's like it gets, it's just instantly in our system, and it has to get out. Like it doesn't get stored like every other thing that you eat does. It's just this energy that just is like making kids crazy because they have so much more energy than they know what to do with. And it's like, that's not how metabolism works. I'm sorry.
Right.
It gets broken down. And if it doesn't get used right away, it gets stored just like anything else. So
yeah. So it's not like your child all of a sudden has like a rocket ship of like,
like 3 times as much energy as they need. It doesn't work like that. Yeah. Now, you may see things like, a lot of times when we do give candy, they seem to be more hyperactive. Well, there's a million other things that may be feeding into that, exactly like you're talking about. Like if it's a party, of course your kid's going to be crazy. If he's playing with other kids and there's games and stuff, like that's fun and that's super stimulating. Maybe it's that, when you have like candy or ice cream, they get to sit and watch a movie, and that's stimulating right before bed. There's a bunch of other things that may be playing into that. I think it's hard to just narrow it down to just, oh, it's obviously just the candy that makes them this way.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I'll go back to the story with the
Okay.
string cheese. There's a home video of, my parents would take home videos when we were kids. And for those of you who maybe in the younger generations listening to this, it was like with the
What's a
camcorder
home
with like
video?
the handheld, with like the videotape in the camera. Anyway,
Mhm.
there's a video of me dumping out my candy stash in the middle of the living room and just like, you can hear the wrappers crinkling as I'm digging through it and I'm picking through what I got and blah, blah, blah. And I suddenly stop and I go, oh, string cheese. And I hold it up and I am jacked. Like I'm so excited about the string cheese. And I don't know why we never really had string cheese in the house growing up. I mean, we did, but it just wasn't like a regular thing my mom would buy.
Yeah.
I freaking loved it. It was like one of my favorite snacks.
That's awesome.
And so I would just have to laugh whenever I think of that video because maybe that's a dietitian in the making right there, right? Like I got through all the other things and it was string cheese.
That's funny.
I know.
String cheese is great.
Such a nerd.
Well,
So then something else we started doing. I have a couple other funny Halloween stories. One was when we were living in our other house we live like one block off of one of the historic districts in Boise. So it's like a big Halloween free for all. I mean, it's like one of the targets for trick-or-treaters. And I had gotten home from work and I was completely unprepared that it was going to be dark soon. Trick-or-treaters are going to start coming around dusk.
Mm-hmm.
And there was a knock at the door and just, unassumingly, I opened the door and there's this cute little kid, trick or treat. And I just like, my face was like, shit, I don't have any candy. And I mean, I didn't have any candy in the house. I had probably like some like Cliff shot blocks or something, like training food kind of thing. And I just was like
walnuts.
I look at this kid and I said, I don't have any candy. And he just looks at me. He kind of looked at me like, haha, funny joke, lady. And then his face starts changing like, she's serious. And I was like, I really don't, buddy. I'm so sorry. What else will you take? He goes,
an apple?
He kind of just, Michael, you read my mind? I ran to the fridge and got an apple. And he just looks at me and was like, okay. And he kind of shrugged and he walked away. So I'm furiously texting Matt and I'm like, you got to stop and get some candy on your way home from work. And I'm not going to be home for another hour. And I'm like, I don't care. I am not going through that again. Anyway, I ended up not finding any candy that night because the two little stores next to our house that are very small little markets didn't have any candy. So we were those people on the street that turned out all the lights and closed all the drapes.
Yeah.
And poor kid. An apple? Like, I'm never coming back to this house.
You want some pennies? The fun house.
We started giving glow sticks because I sort of grappled with the whole like rewarding with candy kind of thing. And like, does everything, again, that whole message of de-emphasizing the candy. What can I give or what can I do that would not be candy? And, I would like get on these websites and read like, what are some alternatives for candies? And I would hear about like these healthy snack, like give an apple or give whatever. And I was kind of like, I know I got excited about string cheese, but I don't know if any other kids are really going to get excited about that. So I started giving out glow sticks. I would just go to the dollar store and I'd get, $20 or $30 worth of glow sticks. And they were a hit. The kids loved them. They get to crack them and start lighting up. And the parents loved them too, because it makes the kids more visible. So, I will offer that to our listeners to maybe think of some alternatives that you can hand out. Because another big problem, which I think we can get into here in a minute, is having the leftover Halloween candy around your house as an adult, because you've got a double problem here. Either your kid went trick-or-treating and brought home a bunch of candy and now you've got a stash that you're staring at, Or you've got a bunch of leftover Halloween candy that you didn't give out,
Mm-hmm.
and now you've got a stash that you're staring at. So
Yeah.
anyway,
Or you bought that big bag, 2 or 3 weeks beforehand because you're a good person and you're a planner, and it's just sitting there tempting you for weeks before Halloween.
you're like, I'll just dump it in the bowl a few
Yeah.
weeks ahead of time. Be prepared.
And then 3 weeks later, you're like, oh, I got to buy another bag
Half
because
gone.
it's all gone.
We all know how that goes.
That's
right?
what you get for being a planner, right?
Yeah.
So
It's
we can get there. But I want to ask you, did you, as a kid, do you remember like I don't even know if it was like an urban legend or what, but were you terrified of getting an
Ooh.
apple with a razor blade in it? Did you
Oh
have that
yeah.
story as a kid?
Oh yeah. Yeah, like you had to x-ray them because they have like needles stuck in them or something.
Yeah.
And yeah, my parents were so I lived in a very small town where you literally know everybody.
Mm-hmm.
And my parents, if I got anything homemade, there was a lady in our town that would make popcorn balls that were so good. So
Mm-hmm.
everybody would like haul butt to her house first because they want to
Mm-hmm.
get Teresa's popcorn balls. And so whenever I would get something homemade like that, my parents would always ask, "Do you know who you got it from? Where'd you get it?" So
Yeah.
and we could tell them like, "Oh, it was the house next to so and so's or something." And my parents usually knew who it was. But yeah, we had that weirdness about the apples or the whatever with
Like,
the
first of all, if you put a razor
things in
blade in an
them,
apple, it would be very obvious.
wouldn't it? It
I
looked
mean,
like you
this big gash in it.
carved the hell out of it trying to
Second
get
of
that
all,
thing in there.
like, what a weird thing to do. Like, you're really into cutting kids' mouths. I mean, like, it's not going to kill them. It's not like they're going to swallow the thing. Like, it was such a weird
don't know.
thing. Even as a kid, I remember thinking, like, who's going to put a razor blade in an apple? This is so stupid. And second of all, I've never gotten an apple. I mean, clearly,
You didn't come to my
you've
house.
given out apples, but I never got an apple as a kid, not once.
Well,
and it was
it
like
is
this thing to beware of,
I hope that if 2020 has taught you anything, it's never to be surprised by what humans will do.
This is true.
If it makes sense or not.
There's going to be an epidemic of razor blades and apples this Halloween.
Oh, geez. Kind of a morbid thought.
Yeah.
So parents.
Yeah.
How do we
parents.
handle this candy thing?
I think so. Whether it's, like beforehand, you've got like the bags of candy sitting around tempting you. If it's afterwards and it's your kids' candy or your leftover candy that's tempting you, I think there are a couple things that you can do. If it's beforehand, I think a really good thing is just put it away somewhere. Put it like in the top of the pantry in the back or something, or in your utility room up on the top shelf, or just in a place where it's just maybe in the top of your closet, whatever, where it's just not easy to see. Because if it's sitting like on the top of your fridge or, on the counter or something, and you see it multiple times a day, like it's going to be hard to resist. It just is, if you have to kind of go out of your way to go see it or get it, you're a lot less likely to do that. So one, I think just remove that temptation out of your, line of sight, just put it away somewhere. Two, I think like, a lot of things we talk about, just give yourself permission to have some, give yourself permission to have a little bit, because I think what happens is, like we've talked about a lot, is we say, no, I can't have any at all. And I have this really hard line and I'm going to, white knuckle it. And then it's that all or none, right? It's that scarcity abundance kind of thing. Like, I can't have any at all. So then when you inevitably open the bag and have, a little piece of whatever, you're like, well, I shouldn't have done that. I'm a terrible person now because I broke my rule. That was a ridiculous rule in the first place. So since I'm a bad person, I've made a bad choice. I may as well just go for it. And you know what? The next 3 weeks, let's just do it. And I'll, October 30th, I'll go buy another bag because I'm going to plow through this one in 3 weeks. Yeah. And I feel like just doing that is just kind of setting yourself up for a really good chance of having a mess, of really shooting yourself in the foot. So just give yourself permission to, if I want to have a few pieces a day, I can have a few pieces, because you know what, like we talked about with kids, it's a short-term thing. Auto regulation is a really good skill and tool to have. It's okay to enjoy things Like otherwise I really think most people are setting themselves up to just have a disaster on their hands, you
Yeah.
know?
And I think one of the things about Halloween candy that is more challenging maybe than other treats is they come in these little, just
Mhm.
easy to like bite-sized little
Right.
pieces. And so there's this impulsivity that comes into play where, oh, it's just one little,
Mhm.
piece. It's easy to just unwrap it, pop it in one bite, and it's
Yeah.
gone. Whereas a lot of other times of the year, if you eat candy, it comes in kind of regular size packages or
Right.
whatever.
Yeah.
So I've heard of other strategies like keep the Halloween candy in the freezer.
Mhm.
So I mean, not only will it keep it from getting stale, but it takes that impulsivity away. So you don't just like grab a piece and I mean, I guess you could put a frozen Rolo in your mouth and let it slowly dissolve. That actually sounds kind of pleasant.
Kind of
But
does.
it would take a lot longer to eat
Mhm.
the candy because it's rock hard.
Yep.
And if you do take it out and wait for it to thaw out, it takes that impulsivity away and hopefully gives you a little space to really think about,
Mhm.
you know, what is it that you're seeking with this? Do you really
Right.
want candy or is there some kind of like emotional eating or
Exactly.
boredom eating or some other reason why you're kind of going toward this just easy to grab
Yeah.
food? Are you like really hungry and you need something more nourishing than candy that's going to last a
Right.
little longer?
Right.
Um so it helps you kind of just take a moment and check in with yourself and
Mhm.
see, is the candy really what I'm after or
Mhm.
is there something else?
Yeah. No, I think it's yeah, like a lot of the mindfulness stuff we've talked about. Like, why are you wanting this? What is this serving? Are you truly hungry? Are you feeling something else? Is it just
Yeah.
mindless eating? Is it, a routine you've developed for eating in the evening and candy is just taking the place of what you would normally eat? I think you also could, and I think this would depend on the person, but you could kind of keep like, and this isn't to restrict or anything, but I think just to increase mindfulness, is like maybe on the fridge have like a candy tally, you know, and every
Mhm.
time you grab a handful, okay, how many did I get? Oh, there's five. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And just throughout the day, just not to go like, oh, I'm only going to have this much, which may or may not be a good idea depending on you, but just to increase awareness,
Mhm.
and maybe the next day you go, okay, I had 20 little pieces of candy yesterday. That's more than I'm comfortable with.
Yeah.
I really want to give myself freedom, but I need to have a better idea of really paying attention. It's increasing that mindfulness, increasing that awareness of actually how much is happening. And I think that could be a good idea too, just so you're kind of aware of what's really going on.
Sure. And, like we said earlier, there might be a point where enough is enough.
Hmm.
And you decide that, gosh, this candy has been sitting in the pantry and I will actually add one more thing to take the candy out of the cute little bucket or the cute little bag or something that your child collected it in and put it in something a little more just boring and
Hmm.
mundane, like a grocery bag or like a cardboard box or something. So it's just in the pantry in a box. That might take away some of the
Yep.
appeal and funness of it. And
Yep.
again, I'm kind of talking like down the road. Okay, a couple weeks past Halloween, we're kind of moving beyond the holiday and the fun, exciting aspect of it is a little bit,
Hmm.
dried
Yeah.
out. So once you're done with Halloween candy, okay, so maybe the adult is completely done with it. I've had enough. I need to get it out of my house, or we need to figure out a solution to this, or the child hasn't touched it in weeks. Find a solution. There's lots of I know several dentists that will collect Halloween candy,
Hmm.
um, in exchange for prizes and things that are non-candy.
Hmm.
Um, I have heard of donation sites where it gives the candy to children who cannot afford to go trick or treating or
Yeah.
who didn't have access to that.
Hmm.
Um, you can give it. I think there's a donation program for our troops where you send Halloween candy to the troops. So there's other ways to share
Hmm.
that Halloween candy, and you don't have to give it all away. You could give half of the stash away, and that would
Right.
cut the temptation or whatever, cut the supply down in your own
Hmm.
home. And that could be a good lesson for your kids on sharing or, how you can trade off and use it as currency like you would in like a dentist office or something like that. That could be something to consider too.
Yeah. Yep. I like those a lot. I didn't know about the sending candy to the troops thing.
Yeah, I've heard of that one.
Hmm.
Yeah, there's all kinds of
Yeah, that's good.
stuff
Yeah,
you could do.
cool.
So, anything that we missed or any other thoughts on Halloween candy?
Just a question. No, I think we covered it, but just a question. So, what is your favorite Halloween candy?
Oh man. Uh so my first thought was like the mini
Besides string cheese?
um I know. String cheese isn't candy though. I can't answer with that. Um I love like the little mini Snickers.
Hmm.
Just I mean, I know it's a classic, but I love it.
Hmm.
Reese's peanut butter cups, Rolos, any of those classic like
Hmm.
candy bars if I'm in the mood for chocolate. If it's something fruity, I think Starburst. I
Starbursts are
mean,
good.
nothing. Yeah, I never got big on like Smarties or
No,
what are the six? Are they
sixlets.
sixlets?
Yeah, they're
Never got into those.
yeah.
Even just plain M&Ms. I was like, meh. Like I
Give me
want either
peanut or
like
peanut butter or something.
hmm
Yeah, come on,
caramely
do it up.
something.
Yeah.
Yeah, or like Starburst would be my fruity candy of choice. How about you?
Well, I'll answer that, but first let me ask you this. So, what's your favorite Starburst?
Is this like the vice presidential debate happening?
Not answering questions.
I'm not answering you.
I will, I
Wait,
promise.
what are you
But
asking me?
what's your favorite Starburst? Which flavor?
Hmm. Strawberry?
Strawberry.
The light pink
Hmm.
wrapper? Yeah.
So that and cherry are my favorite. And if you really want a wild ride, you take a pink and a red, and you just like put them in your with your thumbs, and you mush them
Warm them
together.
up and you mash them
Mush them
together.
together, and you eat it as one, and it is a delight. I'm just going to tell you that right now.
Wow.
Yep. Yep. It's a really fun ride. You should treat yourself sometime. But you got to
Well,
mush them
maybe I
together
will.
so they're one. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
You know, Matt would be upset with me if I didn't mention candy corn because every
Uh,
year, and my friend Justine would too, because every year, I mean, I think of all of the candy, that's like
mhm,
one of the very specific seasonal treats is candy corn.
mhm.
And I know it's very polarizing because some people think it should just be like thrown to the birds.
Yeah.
I
I'm not a
love the
big
stuff.
fan, but I know people
Oh
love it.
man, I love it. And
Yeah.
I'll eat my fill during this time and then I'll be over it and it's
Mhm.
enough and I'll wait until next year and I get excited for it again. Um, but Matt's been shooting a lot of that for his work and so he'll
I
bring home
bet.
candy corn. Yeah. He'll bring home candy corn to me and
What a
I'm like,
bummer, huh?
I know what a great husband.
Right? Yeah. Nice.
Or the little candy corn pumpkins.
Yeah. I just
If you
don't
haven't,
get
if you're
into
not into
them.
candy corn, it's not your thing, but it's pure sugar. Like for some
Hmm.
people, it doesn't taste like anything but sugar.
Hmm.
I like them. I
Yeah.
dig them.
Yeah. So for me, the little mini Twix are probably my
Oh
favorite.
yeah,
I like a
those are good.
Twix. Yeah.
Yeah.
Um, and I never, and this isn't because I think I'm above it or anything. I eat plenty of, non-healthy things.
Where are you
So
going with
this isn't
this?
this isn't like a judgment, but I just never buy candy bars. Like I can't tell you last time I bought a candy bar because it's just not
Yeah.
something I'm like super into. Like I'll buy gummy
Right.
bears or pizza or like I'll buy plenty of other stuff. They're just not something I'm super into. But when the girls get it for Halloween, I'm like, what you got in there?
Right.
And if there's a Twix or a Snickers, yeah, I'm all about that. Yep.
The girls should bargain with you a little bit.
They
Okay,
probably could.
Dad.
They probably
Mm-hmm.
could. Yeah, they could.
I will give you
Get
two
some
of my
money for it.
Twix if yeah.
Yeah, yeah. But or I like Skittles. When
Oh
they get
yeah, those
them
are
or
good.
Starburst. Yeah, those would be kind of my fruitier. Or if there's gummy bears,
Mm-hmm.
that's absolutely my first choice.
Yeah.
Or Swedish fish. I like those too.
Oh, I no. Those are
Really?
those are a hard no. So you and I would probably get along
Wow.
well. We could trade.
Mm-hmm.
You could have all of my Swedish fish and I could get well, you're
All my
not going to give
candy
me the
corn.
Starburst. Candy corn, yeah.
Yeah, I'll give you all the candy corn. You can have my
Perfect.
Starburst too. I'm fine with that.
Okay.
Yeah. Yeah. All right. Well,
Glad
we
we
got
came
that
to
squared
that
away.
conclusion. Yeah. We
Now
can
we know
move
how to
on.
share bag of Halloween candy. We got that squared away. We're
Yeah.
doing the good work here, Erin.
What's your meaning in the mundane this week?
My meeting in the mundane. Okay, so it might have been a week and a half ago. So, but it was recent. Um, but one thing I'm really loving about like Lila as she gets older is just like the conversations I get to have with her. I've shared many of those, and just the way as her, development happens and she just gets different concepts and is really like starting to establish her own, like, this is the type of movies I like. This is the clothing I like, just kind of her identity. Um, and one thing that's just been really cool is to like share music with her, and like when we both find a song that we like and to share that together. We had a moment of that. Maybe it was a week and a half ago. There was a song that I found. I was like, I think she'd like this. And so we lay down in her bed and it was like bedtime, again, the bedtime story. But I just put it on my phone and we just laid there and listened to it. And it was just such a neat moment, of just like sharing something, and for her to go right towards the end of the song, she sat up and she was like, "That's amazing, Daddy. That is a
Oh,
great
wow.
song."
Yeah.
And I was just like, yes. It was just such a cool thing. And she'll like share songs with me and I'll share songs with her. And it's just, it's just such a cool thing to be able to do, because music is such a big part of my life. But to that, in that moment, have something where we're not like talking, we're not really interacting, but we're sharing a very big shared experience. It was
Yeah.
awesome.
And music is a language in itself,
It's
and it
magic. Yeah.
evokes feelings and
Mm-hmm.
connection, and
Mm-hmm.
it's art in a way that it can be interpreted by the
Mm-hmm.
person. I mean, yeah,
Yeah.
that's cool. And for those listeners who don't know, Michael is also a musician. And so
Yeah.
that's why the music is such a deep
Yeah.
connection between
Yeah.
you and Lila.
Yeah. Yeah. So it's just, I mean, in the big grand scheme of things, it's cool to see her developing that love for music and that kind of stuff. But just that specific moment where it was like, man, we didn't say a word, but we had this intensely connected moment. It was
Cool.
really cool. Yeah. How
I
about you?
like that. Good. Well, I have wanted for years now to go and help a friend with his grape harvest. He has a number
Mm-hmm.
of grape vines and has started making wine. And he's a
Mm.
very good friend of ours. He was in our wedding. And he's very like straightforward with the ask of friends to come help with harvest. Hey, I'm going to be doing some work on the farm. If you're available, come out. And there's no expectation and there's no like time frame. It's just this is the day I'm going to be out there working.
Mm-hmm.
Stop on by if you want. And I have always wanted to go out there because the harvest here in Boise for the vines is usually like, I don't know, mid October, anywhere from like early October to mid, just depending on the weather and what's going on. And I always had triathlon going on. So I just couldn't fit it in, couldn't make
Right.
it. And this year I was like, I can actually make this. Like we're in town and I'm totally stoked. And I grew up on a farm.
Mm-hmm.
And so being out in a field or working in a garden or just being outside and kind of helping bring the harvest in is this deeply rooted experience for me, no matter the crop or no matter how it's done. Like the smells, like the dust and kind of the earthiness of being out there and being with friends. Like we had a ton of friends, but we're all like scattered in this vineyard. And so it was very, appropriate for like staying socially distanced in a pandemic. And it just was awesome. Like it was the perfect activity for me to spend
Nice.
my weekend doing. And of course, I got to taste his wine. And so that adds to the experience.
Heck yeah. How fun.
Yeah. It was really fun.
I
And
bet.
it kind of took me back to my childhood growing up with farming and
Mm-hmm.
how the harvest was just in our vocabulary growing
Yeah.
up. Oh, that's harvest time, like everything
Right.
planned around the harvest. And so it is kind of this mundane thing,
Mhm.
you know, that I grew up doing, but it's so special to me because I don't get to do that kind of
Right.
stuff. And then, you know, knowing that you're helping out a friend, you
Mhm.
know, every extra set of hands helps.
Yeah.
So yeah,
Awesome.
that was a cool experience.
Getting to reconnect with those things that were important to you as a kid or that were just significant things as a kid is such a like wonderful treat as an adult, you
Yeah.
know, to just kind of like be doing something new, but also be wrapped up in this feeling of nostalgia. It's just a great, man, it's a neat thing.
Hmm.
Yeah, that's awesome. You got
I
to do that.
agree.
I bet it was
Yeah,
really nice time.
it was.
Yeah.
And it was, I mean, the weather cooperated and
Hmm.
yeah, it was fun.
Cool.
Good stuff. And
Awesome.
I got some wine. Did I
Yeah,
mention that?
you did. But did you get any wine though?
I did get some wine.
Cool. All right.
Okay, so happy Halloween. If
Yeah.
this
Coming
I
up
think
here.
this will yeah, this will be released right around Halloween and
Yeah.
um enjoy your activity or trick or treating or whatever you end up doing
Hmm.
and let us know if you try some of these strategies and maybe it's something different for you and out of your comfort zone and you know, kind of give it a shot
Yeah.
and trust in some of this information and see how it works for you and your family.
Yep. Yeah. We'd love to know how they go. And as always, you know, we'd love to hear any comments or questions. You know, you can reach us at middleish@gmail.com. You know, subscribe, like, share, all that stuff. We really appreciate it.
Great.
All
Thanks, you
right.
guys.
Have a good week.